Hello, all my Catch These Hands Battle League viewers and listeners. Welcome back to the CTHBL podcast. I am your host, Kurt.
And I am your wonderful co-host Josh. And we got a pretty fun week of games to chat about for this episode.
Oh my gosh, week one went great.
Yeah, it really it was a wonderful week of games. Everything went really about as well as we could have hoped for the most part. As we are gonna share our games of the week from each division.
Yeah, we're recording this on Wednesday, so week one is concluded. All
Mm-hmm.
the games have been played. Standings should be updated. Week two, we have a couple games played already, but we're still underway. Still got some games to go. I know I haven't played mine yet. I don't think you've played yours yet.
Nope, mine is actually tomorrow against the reigning champ, which is tad stressful.
That should be scary but exciting. I hope I can tune
Yes.
into that one.
Yeah, hoping it'll be a great game.
I
But
got a bit of a rivalry match myself. Thank you for everyone that participated in our community PRs, ranking all the teams, giving some feedback. I love looking through those. My team in Thunderclap received the second highest ratings, the Buffalo Blazekins, out of all the teams. However, I am playing against the team that got the highest ratings.
ah,
So I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder this week. I got to prove myself.
that's my team was rated 5th overall, which surprised me in Mock Punch. I did not think my team would get 5th. I figured I'd be closer to the bottom. But I'm pretty sure Aquano actually is first. Yeah, he's first in the Mock Punch PR. So that's
So
very
both of
stressful.
us have a first place matchup this week, according to the community. I mean,
Yes, yes, we do.
I would give myself the first overall team, but I listen to the community. I respect their opinions.
I think Aquano deserves his first place. He's, as we have chatted about before, just very, very good at draft league. But enough of the future. Let's talk about the past and week one and these
Yeah, so
games.
today should be an exciting episode. We're looking a little bit of the week one matchups. The awards have already been distributed, they've been given
Hmm.
out. We've had our matches of the week, we've had our MVPs of the week, our favorite sets. So we're going to look at the matches of the week as determined by our wonderful award givers. Aquano takes care of Vacuum Wave. Handy takes care of Thunderclap. And this week, I actually took care of the Mock Punch. So I was able to watch every single match in that division. And there were some good ones.
Yeah,
There were some rough ones, but there were a lot of good ones.
yeah. We're gonna start with our vacuum wave division with the JJ Games versus One Tap matchup. Um, this is a match. Uh,
It's a match. You can say that.
I'll be honest, that's about all I can say. Even just turn one, you see sacking the Hisuian Electrode to get up a reflect. I don't see the point in it. Um, and then Lucario comes in against the Glastrier, uh, forces it out, and Gallade comes in against it. Lucario gets up 3 bulk ups, and
I
then
mean, this is a game with Lucario completely statted out, ready to go crazy. That one tap should have won.
but for some reason he swapped Lucario out, and don't I don't understand it in any way, shape, or form. Um, there was no good reason to do that. There was nothing that could do anything to Lucario, especially because the only possible special attackers on JJ's team were Moltres and Vaporeon, and Vaporeon was for some reason built physically, running Trailblaze and was it Aqua Jet or Aqua Tail?
Aqua Tail, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that just it doesn't make sense. Um, but
Look, in draft league, one of the biggest thing is capitalizing on your opponent's mistakes. And at the end of the day, JJ did a great job capitalizing on the mistakes of one tap.
that is very true. Especially one tap using Aqua Cutter on the water absorb Vaporeon, healing it back up from like 20% almost back to 50. Um, so it was a game with very strange builds. One tap 100% through it after switching out that Lucario after it got to +4, I believe, in both attack and defense with its bulk ups. Um, but that's how Draft League goes sometimes. Sometimes you just make those misplays.
I think Cleaver was really set up here to be an endgame sweeper, and I
Mm-hmm.
think I don't know what set the Cleaver had, whether it was choice band or what it was running, but clicking knockoff against the Glastrier probably wasn't the greatest move. I think if you had Stone X or Stone Edge,
Mm-hmm.
not running the calcs right here off the top of my head, but that probably would have killed the Glastrier, and then it puts you in a one-on-one against a weakened Vaporeon.
Uh-huh. And on
But
top,
Glastrier went one-on-one for a reason.
yep.
It's very physically bulky. It hits very hard on the physical side, and JJ took advantage of his first overall pick to end the game and take the victory.
Yeah, just one other thing that I wanted to highlight was one of the builds that I don't think I've ever seen anything like it was the specially built Grapploct running Hydro Pump. Using that on a Terra Grass cloth, I don't think that was the best choice. Um, it again, this was overall just a strange game. Watch a lot of weird things going on. Um, but JJ won 2-0, and you're right, definitely put that Glastrier to use.
Hey, if you're JJ and you're running Anger Shell Cloth or whatever the ability is called,
Yep.
you want that to proc, and it did proc,
Yeah.
especially as a Terra captain. So it worked out in JJ's favor.
Yes, it
JJ's
did.
now 1-0 with a +2 differential.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to squeak out that win, taking advantage of your opponent's misplays, that's what you want to see in draft. And best of luck to JJ in the future. And one tap, I think you had this game in the bag. Just tighten up on those mistakes, and next week you should be flying high.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Um, Now, we will move to our mock punch. And this was a very, very good game, very, very close game. That ended up being decided by a crit at the end. And of course, we are talking about the wonderful Ty Lord versus KJ Flame.
So
Um,
when I was going through all the games in Mock Punch and determining the game of the week, this is actually the first one I watched. So when it's the first one you watch, you're looking at all the other games, you're thinking, okay, what game can beat this? What game is going to overtake this and get the real award for game of the week? And as I watched all 7 other games, I was like, wow, there's some good games in Mock Punch. Don't get me wrong. I had a lot of fun watching it, but no game quite beat the stress and the closeness of KJ versus Ty Lord. So
oh,
there's a reason why it came out on top this week.
yeah, not even close. And one thing I know we highlighted earlier when we were talking, was just again turn one, the Charizard going for the Scorching Sands right off the bat on Bronzong, and really verifying if it had Levitate or Heat Proof. That was a ballsy play by Tylord that surprisingly worked. I mean, it he figured out that Bronzong was not Levitate, which is huge. Um,
That's a risky move, and you're going to
Very
see a lot
risky.
of Bronzongs more usually running the Levitate, but against the Charizard, against a team built like Tylord's,
Hmm.
Heat Proof is probably the move here.
Yeah.
So being able to confirm that off the bat against a Sun team, making sure it's not Levitate, it's great. It didn't pay too many dividends because Bronzon's still bulky enough where it ate that Scorching Sands with no problem.
Hmm.
But I love the balls on that play, and I love the intel that they gained from that play.
Yeah, it was huge. Um, then we saw the Nasty Plot Crobat come out from KJ Flame, which managed to secure 2 kills on Tylor, taking out the Ninetales, setting up Drought on Sun, and the Charizard, which can hit pretty hard, especially with that solar power ability. But then,
I don't know if you remember when we were going through the low tier and we were ranking all the mons by points, Crobat was a mon of contention.
yes,
A
it
lot of
was.
people were like, "Oh, it should be a lot higher. It's got a great speed tier. It hits pretty hard."
Hmm.
Some people are like, "No, it doesn't come in that much. It doesn't do what you want it to." So there's a lot of back and forth between how high Crobat should be on the points board. And I think this week, it actually proved its worth as a very viable mon in the low tier draft.
100%. Again, a 130 base speed tier. It's one of the fastest mons actually it might be the fastest mon in low tier draft. Um
the fastest viable mon for sure.
Yes. And it has decent stab options. And if you can set up that nasty plot, we know that flying isn't the best type for special moves with accuracy specifically. But being able to run something like Sludge Bomb, um, that's huge. Knowing you're gonna outspeed everything at base, it it showed that it can be a really good mon. Um, but one of the best plays this week had to be the Focus Sash Slurp Off. Um, Growth Venusaur in the sun is scary. It has chlorophyll. It can double its attack and special attack right off the bat as soon as it gets out there. But thanks to Slurp Buff having Unburden and that Focus Sash procking, it managed to use Psychic and outspeed the Venusaur to take it out, which completely shut down Tylord.
Yeah, I mean, I was so excited watching the match and seeing, oh, the chlorophyll and the growth setup.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready for a Venusaur sweep. I was going into this blind. I thought, oh, it was game over.
Yeah, it
But
was.
that Slurpuff, I mean, KJ set it up perfectly, having the exact mon he wanted out against that Venusaur.
Yeah, it
I mean, the
was
timing and the positioning couldn't be any better.
so incredibly well played. And one thing that really ended up costing Tylord this game was status. The Gliscopod getting hit with Toxic by the Bronzong was detrimental to Tylord, as we saw at the very end of the game. Um, Especially playing against the Heracross and Heatmore. One thing that we saw as we ran some calcs was that this game came down to a crit,
It did.
which was very sad to see. Heracross got a crit on Lurantis. I believe it was a close combat crit.
Close combat crit, and
Yeah.
it did 90% to the Lurantis. And running the calcs, now I don't know the exact spread, but if we're looking at basic spreads, that close combat should have done closer to 40 to 50%,
Mm-hmm.
but instead it did a 90%.
Which completely threw Tylord off and cost him. Because then Lurantis could not survive a Fire Lash from Heatmore. And because it was Terra fighting, if it did not get crit, it would have lived at least one Fire Lash, which would have meant it could have taken out Heatmore, which also would
And I
have.
believe running the crits again, yes, a superpower, I think kills the heat more there.
Yes, because it was
Eh,
+2 in both attack and defense.
So what was a 1v2 Glycopod versus Heatmore and Absol would have flipped and but a 2v1 for Tylord.
Yep.
He would have had Glycopod and Lurantis versus Absol. So
Which
luck and RNG are so, I mean, it sucks when you experience it on the opposing side, but it's such a
mhm,
big part of the draft league scene.
it really is. And it's hard to watch when you know that a crit can cost the game. But this was incredibly well played by both coaches. KJ still had the Absol in the back, and despite knowing if that Gliscopod wasn't hit with Toxic, that it could have won the game, and if Lurantis didn't get crit there, a sad way to watch the game go down. But
Yeah. A
overall,
non-toxic Glycopod would have lived the heat more and then killed Absol with first impression.
yeah. But overall, I think it was still a great game. And
Great
it
game, as close as a game could be.
Yeah, and very well deserving of the first match of the week for Mock Punch. Now, I know you know the VGC a little better than me, so why don't you take that away for us?
All right, game of the week, in my opinion, and I know Handy, our fearless leader, agrees with me because he awarded this game of the week, was Crisps versus Lucre Cove. And I'm sorry if I'm not saying that correctly. Now, this game was played directly after mine, so I had the honors of watching it live.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just a great showing of just great sets, making great decisions, and just coming down to sheer luck at the end. Now, the difference between the low tier and the VGC is VGC goes a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's only played with 4 Mons, and it's played in a best of 3. So if you lose one game, you can always come back, make adjustments, and try your hardest the next game.
Mhm.
Now, game 1, I really want to shout out the Weird Deer on Lukerkov's side because as a 5-point lower tier mon, this Weird Deer put in amazing work.
Mhm.
The set was specifically crafted to kind of counter the trick room that Crisp relies on in his team build. So turn 1, it uses Imprison and stops the opposing Farigiraf from using Trick Room, and it fakes it out. And when Ditto comes in and copies the Weird Ear, it's funny, I didn't actually know this myself until watching the game. Ditto, since it copies the Weird Ear and Imprison stops you from using any move that matches with your opponents, Ditto was forced to struggle, and it was rendered basically useless for the match.
I didn't know that happened either, but that is such a smart play for such a cheap mon. That is amazing.
Yeah, so phenomenal work from Weird Ear there, doing exactly what it was supposed to on Lukerkov's side and doing it to a very high level and a high degree. And it's up there in the kill standings right now at 3-2.
Which is
So watch out
very
for Weird Ear to
impressive.
come
Yeah.
in. That's a mon you got to prep for now. It's been put on the map.
Mhm.
Now match 2 was my favorite of the 3. That's because I got to see Crisps and actually talk to Crisps before the draft ended and was able to get a little insight on his plan where it's where I got to see his genius truly in play. So he had Malamar and Hydrapple on his side of the field, and he skill swapped Malamar's contrary onto Hydrapple, meaning that Hydrapple's Draco Meteor and Leaf Storm, two very powerful moves, instead of lowering his attack, actually raised his attack. And by the end of the match, Hydrapple is at 4 times special attack.
Which is just insane. And that's never a set that I would imagine would ever come. But
And I hate to say it's a one-time thing because now that it's out there, people are going to prep for it. But it's still that's something you can pull out and be absolutely monstrous with. And even then, even with Hydrapple and that tech, Gliscor was the hero of that match.
oh, really?
Yeah, Gliscor was the one that got in, shooting off earthquakes and got a lot of the kills. But Hydrapple lived the entire match and was a threat, especially with a Terra Fairy,
Oh, yeah.
kind of canceling out some of his weaknesses.
Yeah, that
Terra Captain Hydrapple with Contrary, I mean, that's just scary. I don't even want to think about that. If I have to face Crisp, I don't know if he's on my schedule, but that's something that I'm going to hyper plan for. And even just knowing as an opponent that that's something that comes out, even if he can't use it again, because people are expecting it now,
mhm.
that's going to make people wary the entire match. So I don't think you played your cards too early, Crisp. I think you played them perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, that was huge. And I know when I first watched back that game, you told me to watch it, and it is one of the coolest sets I think I've ever watched. I loved seeing it. What a great way to use Contrarymon to give it to something that's just way better, like Hydrapple, that can benefit using Draco Meteor and Leaf Storm, and is bulky enough to be able to live, especially with that Terra Fairy. Just awesome plays. I loved match 2. It was great to watch.
Yeah, we talked in our previous episode that he's going to be really locked into Trick Room.
Hmm.
And if Trick Room doesn't work, then he's kind of screwed.
Yeah.
But it's funny that the only game he won was game 2, and he didn't have a chance to set up Trick Room.
Hmm.
And then it comes down to game 3, which was super close. Game 3, it starts turn 1. Lucre Cove has Prankster Whimsicott out, sets up a sunny day, and Hisuian Arcanine kills Farigiraf with 1 Flare Blitz. I haven't
Wow.
done the rolls on that, but I'm going to assume with the HP and the bulk that Farigiraf has, that the sunny day mattered.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it completely shuts down that Trick Room tech. And additionally, it gets a little prep and it starts to set up for Walking Wake coming in, which happens the next turn.
That's actually insane.
I
What?
love weather setters. I love Torkoal. I
Hmm.
love Pelipper. I think weather setters are great in VGC.
Hmm.
But as someone that's running Tornadus and seeing this Whimsicott set, I think those Prankster weather setters are just as great as the ability weather setters, if not better, because they do it at a delay and can counter other weather setters.
The prankster weather setters are we're saying that so much. They're so frustrating. Um, it it's infuriating when you set your weather and then you know that someone can bring out that Tornadus or Whimsicott and set up something else to just completely throw off your plan and ruin your team, basically. Um, but I mean that happened to me with my last game in a VGC match, where I had Rillaboom and Grassy Terrain, but I was playing against Whimsicott and it had Prankster Misty Terrain, which
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, which was very frustrating to deal with. And Prankster Mons overall are just so annoying if they are not on your team.
Now, despite losing his fur draft early, I think Crisps kind of brought it back in the best way he possibly could. He was in a 3v1 with only his Ursaluna Blood Moon left
Hmm.
and brought it down to no Mons left on the field. I mean, Ursaluna Blood Moon, even without the Trick Room setup, that Hyper Voice hits hard.
Yeah, it
He was
does.
able to take out the Whimsicott on the opposing side. He took out the Weirder on the opposing side, and then it came down to a roll with Walking Wake, and
Hmm.
Walking Wake just barely survived at the end.
Wow.
That
And
game could have gone either way.
that's the definition of a perfect game of the week for any VGC, where it's all three games played, coming down to just one mon left. That's huge. And I think Crisps and Luker Cove should both be very, very proud of themselves for how they played in week one. It was by far the most exciting game to watch.
I can't wait to see what both of them do later on in the season. Again, a lot of their techs, maybe they've been exposed week one, but like I say, if you expose your tech, that scares your opponent, and then they're prepping for it, and you bring something completely different. And I think both of them are smart enough to adjust on the fly,
Hmm.
and they're going to make a lot of teams sweat.
Yeah. And I'm excited. Especially after everything we saw in all of the divisions this week. There's a lot to look forward to in the coming weeks. Everyone has shown a lot of promise. Mach Punch is a very, very scary division. Vacuum Wave has shown a lot of new faces that know how to play and have some pretty cool tech. And then VGC, as we just highlighted with our match of the week, a lot of people coming out with these new strats and things that we haven't really seen before that they're making work, and it's making CTHBL a very exciting environment to be in right now.
I know you and I have mocked for my upcoming match, and we've kind of played around with things. And I know both of us have had some exciting and unique strategies for my upcoming match.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping I can take the win this week, but I really got to dive into my deep bag if I want to come out and be 2-0.
Yeah, it's stressful for both of us this upcoming week, both playing the people that everyone thinks is first in our divisions. Definitely going to be some hard games, but definitely going to be fun ones to talk about afterwards, win or lose, to see what happens.
Yeah, so to refresh, Mock Punch game of the week, we had KJ versus Ty Lord. Vacuum Wave game of the week was One Tap versus JJ. And Thunderclap game of the week was Chris versus Lukerco. Now, we actually, if you heard that ping, we have a special guest joining us today. My favorite fearless leader, the owner of the server, the man that puts all of us on his back and makes this as successful as it can be. Handy, would you like to say hello?
What's going on? Y'all hear me?
There he
Yes.
is.
What up?
How we doing, Handy?
I'm good, man. How y'all?
We are fantastic and incredibly happy to have you here.
Thank you for
We
having
just
me.
did our Yeah, of course. We just did our run through of the game of the weeks. I don't know if you wanted to add anything or anything that you saw.
I am just like in general all three divisions, just super hyped to see what else everyone's gonna be cooking. I caught the end of what you were talking about, Thunderclap, and that was definitely like one of my more favorite BGC games I've seen in a while. So the whole set was fire.
I totally agree. I can't word that any better. It was just straight fire, and like I said, I'm scared to face these two owners.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited for all of the games. And you have some fun sets, so I'm looking forward to what you bring to the table in Vacuum Wave.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm cooking something a little special for Minecrafter.
Ooh,
He's definitely the wild card of the division.
yes.
You have no idea what Minecrafter's ever bringing, so I plan to
Never.
I plan to use that against him.
Yeah, Minecrafter has shown me some of his sets before. I I don't even know how to describe them. They're so unique. Um, they're definitely not optimized, but
Yeah, some of
they're
them are wacky, but some of them you're just like, this actually works.
yeah, and they're things that people are not going to expect. So definitely something to look forward to in this week.
So, like we mentioned, one of the big things we want to do with this podcast is bring guests on, and we couldn't not go without having the owner on. So, again, Handy, we thank you for coming on to the podcast today. After talking about the week one matchups, I want to ask you kind of about your week one matchup. How did you go about it? How did you feel? How did you prep for it?
Okay, so my week one, we might have adjusted the schedule a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So me and Ty the guy go way back. We've been in multiple divisions together, multiple different leagues. So he's like, I'll join CTHBL, but we gotta play week one. I'm like, all right, bet. So going into that match, I think my team is a little predictable. I mean, I'm running a Sun team, as y'all went over in the last. I guess this is the third podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So whenever y'all were doing the podcast that was going over y'all's teams and some other teams, y'all highlighted the Sun team I have.
And
Um,
you know I love Sun teams from our
oh, Sun team's
days in
great, dude. You cooked me
SGBL
with the Sun team, yeah.
Sun teams are
back
fun.
in the day, man.
Um, I'm very familiar with Sun teams, and I've done Sun team in VGC. I've done a Sun team in Ubers. I've done a Sun team in regular Nat decks. So now bring Sun to low tier. Um,
It's such a versatile set. Like it
it
works
really
everywhere.
is.
And your use of all three Gen 1 starters. I know
Oh yeah.
Blastoise doesn't work fantastic in Sun, but the Venusaur and Charizard combo in Sun is awesome.
Give me 1 second here. I'm
Yep.
trying to find Tyler guy's team so I can just jog my memory on how I prep for that.
Yeah, for sure. As you're looking for that, yeah. So Handy and I, we actually faced off in another league where I had a Sun team. I also had Venusaur. I had Mega Venusaur and Charizard, with Torkoal as my Sunsetter. But I also took use of Great Tusks and Walking Wake. And that was a close match if I remember correctly. And
Yes,
I think if I didn't beat you, I would never have made playoffs. And I just scraped into playoffs.
and I think you were the reason why I didn't make playoffs. That that
That was
was
a great match, though. I had a
it
lot of
was
fun with
so
that.
good. Okay, I found Tyler guy's team. So in prep, I knew the biggest threat to my Sun plan was going to be his Altaria.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But I was banking on the fact that I had decent enough Mons where Sun wasn't going to be the only determining factor. And I was also running dark moves on every single one of my Mons to make sure the Shed Ninja couldn't do dumb stuff.
That's good
That's
coverage. I
that's
like that.
very good coverage and smart because obviously Shedinja is just so frustrating to have to deal with.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into a situation where I just couldn't beat it endgame.
Hmm.
I know I ran an Altaria. I picked up an Altaria in a different draft league because I know I was playing against the Sun team, and I was like, super excited for this tech to come out. I think it was actually against Joe Schmo last season in CTHBL,
Oh my.
Oh
and
yeah.
I had the Altaria set up and everything, and it just didn't work like I thought. It was very disappointing, but still, it's something you have to prep for. So
Oh,
I understand
100%.
planning for that.
Sun is such a fun weather to use, especially with a lot of mons getting chlorophyll,
Oh,
or just
100%.
boosts in the sun, like the boost to fire moves in sun is great. And with all the paradox mons getting the proto boost, also really fun to be able to use those. That was my goal in, gosh, the first draft league you got me into, Kurt,
Yeah.
in CLDL. Um, I went full sun because Torkoal is my second favorite Pokemon of all time, so I thought it'd be a great time to use it, and it worked. It got me into playoffs. It was awesome.
I mean, I have Leafeon this season just to capitalize on Tornadus if I run Sunny Day to boost Chiyu's
Ooh.
move. Then I got a Chlorophyll mod in the back just in case. So I
Yo,
definitely like
Leafeon
that
is a
pick from you,
budget
Handy.
Ogrepon.
Oh,
It
it's
is.
great.
It hits so hard. But
I'm excited to use mine.
enough of our games in the past. We want to know, how long have you been in draft, Handy?
I've only been in draft for about a year and a half. My first league was SGBL Season 1. The league that I met Kurt in was my first ever
Season
league.
one,
Really?
man.
Yeah. Yep.
That was my first league too.
What got you to join into the draft league scene?
I was bored. But so Gravy Train, and if you all remember Janak from Season
Oh
1.
Yes,
yeah.
JNAG.
So back in Sun and Moon days, we used MS Paint and we had drafted every single stage starter. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then I took each one of our cartridges for Sun and Moon, and out of our draft mods, I put each of them into an egg. And so we ran through Sun and Moon. Um, each time you got a Z crystal, you would hatch a few more eggs, and we would all battle each other. So that was like my first pseudo draft.
The
I'll try to
Scuffed
send
Handy
y'all a.
Draft League.
That
It was a
is
scuffed handy
amazing.
draft league. I'll try to find one of the paint images of our draft. It's kind of beautiful, not gonna lie.
Oh, please do. That's something we need to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
season one of SGBL was also my first undergoing a draft league. I think they did great advertising. Same thing, I was bored, so I searched it up and I had a lot of fun, and that's what ignited my passion for it.
Very nice.
Yeah, I
And I'm
think
glad to be here now.
the mod team from SGVL kind of gave me the push to make CTH. The Global Bros are really cool, and they ran that league like a tight ship.
Hmm.
So I kind of wanted to imitate them in a way.
Would you
Yeah,
Because I
that's
say?
used,
perfect.
yeah, I used their whole document for season 1. I just
Mhm.
stole it.
You thief.
Add a little
I
bit of the CTHBL flair, though.
just a little
Yes.
bit.
Now, would you say that the current way CTHBL is being run, would you call it a tight ship?
No, I don't think that's my leadership style, if you would call it that.
I agree.
I
I
think
very
you're
much agree.
definitely geared towards the community interaction, though, which makes for a super fun and engaging like draft experience.
Oh, I appreciate
Oh
that.
yeah. Of the other servers I'm in, I don't. And okay, this might be biased because obviously everyone here is a member of the mod team. But the other servers I'm in, there's nowhere near as much interaction. Like actually with the community and just talking, doing the daily polls and all that fun stuff. I have not seen that in any of the other, and I'm in 5 servers, and it just doesn't seem like the heart is there as much, which is part of why I love CTHBL so much. It's everyone really seems to care, and I think you've done a great job of helping everyone care so much.
I appreciate that.
So you kind of alluded to the guys at SGBL kind of pushed you towards starting this community, but what else kind of drew you into starting Catch These Hands Battle League?
Um, so it was SGBL wasn't starting soon. I really liked the environment they had. Um, Gravy kind of Discord shy at the time, so I really couldn't get him or JNAC for that matter to like join other Discords because I knew they'd have fun drafting.
Hmm.
So I wanted to create a Discord where me and the homies can do some actual draft instead of my scuffed MS Paint leagues.
It's so cool seeing the evolution, and not to say that it was like scuffed starting off, but just seeing like where you were at the beginning to where it is now, and all the people that have joined, and
Oh,
all the
it's
people
awesome.
that signed up for season 2. It's
And
amazing.
also, like, you were part of the reason I made CTH as well, Kurt, because I messaged you. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna make a server. You want to mod it? And you said sure. And it was just me, you, and JNAC and CTH for like 3 weeks until I just decided to actually start pushing stuff off.
Dude, no glaze, but you were one of my favorite people in SGBL. And when you reached out to me, that meant so much to me.
Oh,
Oh,
And I was
sweet.
so on board with starting this and helping you out with that. And being able to invite Josh and my friend Joe to get my other friends who've always wanted to dip their toes in like a community that I know would be fun and also like a great way for them to experiment. And
yes.
that's why I really love it. It's so welcoming to like new users and new draft league players.
Yeah, I mean, Kurt, you invited me obviously to CTHBL where I got to meet the lovely Handy. Um, but up until like the end of CLDL and into CTHBL, I and before you got me into Draft League, like the care I had for Pokemon had like gone down. I wasn't collecting cards anymore. I barely played the games anymore. And then you brought up like, hey, you should try this with me, and it's reignited my passion completely for Pokemon. Draft League is so much fun. Being able to use new mons, try new things, it's awesome. Especially being in a server where so many people are passionate about it, and you get to learn so much. Um, I think CTHBL has become a really great place for that.
It's so great you mentioned the passion part because I love draft league, but
Mhm,
the singles meta, it's just not. I realized as I kept going on, it's not what I'm great at. It's not my forte.
mhm.
And Handy, I'm so grateful that you added the Thunderclap in the VGC division because I love the doubles meta, and my love for draft league has never been higher since the Thunderclap division.
Hmm. That's,
Now,
VGC is fun, man. I just suck at VGC draft.
I'm really bad at
I'm
VGC.
not an expert by any means, but I I think it's just so fun, like building the text and seeing like what people can come up with and the synergy between two mons on the field. Is this your MS
Let's
Paint
paint. This
thing?
is amazing.
That's my
Josh,
MS
pull that
Paint
up.
draft.
Give me 1 second. I gotta copy the or save this image.
This is from
Sorry.
Sun and Moon, you said?
This was Sun and Moon. This was circa 2019.
New image capture. Add source.
So as Josh is pulling that up, Handy, what was the first ever Pokemon game you played? And follow up, what's your favorite game you've ever played?
So my first ever Pokemon game was Pokemon Crystal.
Okay,
Oh my.
Um,
it's a good one.
yeah,
That is a good one.
I got it for my 7-year-old birthday. That and a Game Boy Advance.
Love it.
And my favorite game,
Oh my.
this might be a hot take. I'm gonna say Sword and Shield.
Oh,
Wow,
really?
That is
that is
my
a hot
so
take.
That's a very hot take.
when I was deployed, I completed that game for like the third time, and like I don't know why, but I enjoyed that playthrough so much. Maybe because it got me through deployment,
No, that makes
but
sense.
That's yeah,
yeah.
that's fair.
A buddy of mine and Josh's from our childhood, when he got deployed, all of his buddies in his battalion bought Game Boy Advances and bought copies of Emerald
Oh
and just
fuck yeah,
grinded it out together.
Yeah,
fuck yeah,
military loves Pokemon.
It,
What can you say?
it's really
agreed.
crazy how
The
Pokemon
military
brings
just has a
people
bunch of
together like that.
nerds.
Yeah,
Like we were playing Magic the Gathering and like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh just for 9 months.
I love Yu-Gi-Oh too. Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon are my
Do
childhood.
I deploy now? Because that sounds
Are,
awesome.
are we getting deployed, Kurt?
No, I Sword and Shield was fun. It got me through COVID, but honestly, another hot take. I'll always have a soft spot for Emerald, but I really, really love Scarlet.
Scarlet and Violet's good though. It's
Yeah.
fine.
It's far from my favorite, but I mean, I like the more classic style of Pokemon. I think Emerald is
Scarlet
one
and
of the
Violet has
best
so
games.
much replayability.
You're right, it does.
It really is.
I've actually
Yeah, I've
really
been
gotten into watching the videos of people playing through Scarlet and Violet using just like I'm beating the game using only snakes, using only dogs. They're stupid, but it's so much fun to watch.
Have y'all played Emerald Rogue yet?
I have played a little bit, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was addicted to that thing for a month.
That is why I have not gotten into it because I watched you and Tylord both playing it, and I knew if I started, I would be completely addicted to it, and that would not be great.
It's so good.
So coming back to like the draft side of things, Handy, I've seen you build so many different teams across so many different formats. But what is your optimal draft strategy when coming into a new draft?
My optimal draft strategy. So I excluding the CTH season 2 draft
Yeah.
Mhm.
because it's low tier and I've never done low tier. I am a huge fan of you get your fire, water, grass core, you get your
Hmm.
steel, dragon, fairy core, you get yourself a ground, you get yourself a dark, you get yourself a ghost, then whatever's left,
Type
have
coverage. Yeah,
fun.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Um, I would say I usually draft balance if I'm not drafting like a weather team,
Mhm.
Now,
and I'm
I know.
always. I know a lot of people like going for different Pokemon and they're like trying to try every single Pokemon in draft, but I get stuck drafting a lot of Pokemon or the same Pokemon over and over again. Like I will always try to go for a Florges round 3 or 4.
Agreed.
Escavalier, I've drafted that thing like 4 times.
There. A good mon.
I know for me, I'm very top heavy. I like to get my heavy hitters first, use up my points, and then go into my low tiers. And a lot of people like to mix it up. They get their top heavy, then go into a low tier, and then kind of alternate. How do you like to distribute your points throughout a draft?
So I generally will do my first few heavy hitters, my high pointers, and then I always like saving enough points at the end for like round pick or round 8 or round 9
Mhm.
to get a at least 13-point mon, like a nice price mon at the end.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if that's like a strategy or anything, but that's what I enjoy doing. Like with CTH season 1, the round 8 Mega Aerodactyl.
That was a
Great pick.
huge pick, yeah. That's I've I've fallen off from being so top heavy like you, Kurt. I really just try and get a bunch of middle of the road Pokemon, so I have that versatility every week where I could bring anything. Instead of people knowing, oh, he's gonna bring, let's go with low tier. He's gonna bring Gallade every single week because it's a 19-point mon. There's no reason not to bring it. Um, Having that like well balanced between like a 15 to 8 point mons all on my team definitely helps with week to week for me. And I'm still newer to draft, so I'm trying a lot of new things too. Um, but especially using weather and with snow specifically as I'm using for season 2. I think it's gonna work pretty well in low tier. Especially since I mean low tier is a bunch of mons people haven't seen before or rarely see. So it's a lot of surprises.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the format definitely dictates what you do.
Hmm.
I think my biggest success in draft league, and yeah, you're right. Sometimes it's like, oh, you don't want them to know what you're bringing in a week. But my biggest success comes from having a lot of higher point heavy hitters, and even if they know what you're going to bring, they just can't stop it.
Yeah.
So I kind of stick to I'll take my 20, my 18, my 16-point mons really early, and then fill in with low tiers to cover the gaps that I have.
Hmm.
Fair.
But I've also seen both of you have a lot of success in both the draft leagues, and I think you have different draft strategies than I do. So it really depends on the person.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, your VGC strategy is very different than what we use for low tier, and your VGC team is stacked, as we talked about previously.
I mean, Chi-Yu round 3 was I don't know
Insane.
how that got
I
back
have
to me.
no idea how you got Chi
Yeah, that was
round 3.
insane.
But yeah, I think that's a very fair point that the format that you're playing in really dictates it, because even in a regular national dex draft in comparison to low tier, very different ideas in what I'd want to do.
So with all the speed tours, with all the drafts you've been in handy, what has been your favorite format?
My favorite format. Oh, that's a tough one.
It's tough. It is.
I'm gonna go vanilla and say some good old fashioned Nat decks, Gen 9. But however, fusion leagues are a very, very close second.
Hey, no problem going vanilla. I love me
Yeah,
some Nat Dex Gen 9.
it's awesome. There's so many mons to choose from and just so many
So much.
strategies to use. But that fusions tour that we did was awesome. There's so many things to try, and it's so weird but so good. I agree. Fusions is really fun.
It also puts everyone at like a level playing field because unless you played the death out of the fusion game, everyone's kind of coming in not really knowing what to expect.
Yeah.
Well, even if you've played the fusion game, like it's not Nat decks. So
No,
all the fusion leagues that I've been in, because I've done more after we did our little mini season. It's there's no prepping for it going into draft. Like, well, I guess this is gonna work. I'm really gonna find out throughout the season.
yeah. I thought I was cooking with my gouging fire, basculin, adaptability, fusion, but I didn't make it too far.
It's hard. I thought my bug dragon Latios, and I forget what the heck I used it with. I think it was like Volbeat or something. Not great. I wanted to try, and it ended up sucking. It was terrible. Oh yeah, it was Volbeat because it had Tail Glow, and I thought it was going to be great, but no, it was just one of the worst fusions I had, and it did not do anything.
But the creativity that it allows you to
Oh,
dive
100%.
into.
Yeah, and all of the ones that do have custom sprites are so cool to look at.
I love the custom sprites that are like references or just straight up different characters from different shows or video games.
Oh, they're awesome. And it's nice seeing all of the community's creativity and making them, and then actually seeing like a game use them, because I know it's a bunch of different people making them, and the fact that the community can come together and make all those sprites and put them into a game, and then that we can use them. It's fun. It's really nice to see.
So we talked about draft league in general. I want to bring it back to the Catchy's Hands Battle League. We got 3 divisions. We've done our community PRs. Andy, I want to hear from you. Who do you think is the favorite in each division? Or favorites if you got a couple.
Okay, so with Mac Punch, we obviously have to go with season one champ Aquano doing really well.
Mhm.
Easy answer, I get
That's
it.
a very,
Easy
very
answer,
easy
but I
and
will
safe
give
answer.
a couple other options. Um, Fudge is gonna be hungry, especially
Yes.
since people are trolling him in the community PRs and on the pick'ems each week.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gonna come out with a vendetta. You always gotta look out for people like Fusion and fucking
Yeah, you're
and
good.
Ty Lord.
Mm-hmm.
They'll always cook. In Math Punch, we have a couple of new coaches that are new to CTH, but they were vetted from the mod team in other leagues. So Terravolt is a very, very good player.
I,
Obviously, you, Papa, you can cook. I believe in you.
Thanks, I
I, I,
appreciate it.
I want to hop on your Ty Lord bandwagon here. Again, he lost in a very close match this week, but I was talking to him early today, prepping for another league. he does some insane prep. He thinks of everything. He's a genius when it comes to draft league.
He is always prepping. I think that man like messages me every other day about some prep.
That's
You love to see the grind.
almost all of season 1. Tyler and I mocked together every single week. And he was in a little slump for like 3 weeks in the middle of the season. But he got out of it and just completely flipped the switch. And every night when I was at work, we would talk for hours going over our matchups. And I think that's the only reason him and I both made it as far as we did, is the insane amount of prep that we did every night. And I didn't plan on it at all. But once he got out of that slump, it was insane to see the change in just how much he cared and could think of everything, things that I would never think of in my matchups. He would bring up, and then they'd show up in my games, and it was reasons I won. He's a
Nice.
very, very smart player. And I don't think that the week 1 loss is going to hang heavy on him. I think he's going to get right back up and show us what he can do in week 2.
100%. So with
I agree with the Aquano pick, though. I think it's hard to root against the season 1 champion.
Very hard to root against him.
and he also drafted a very, very good team.
Yes, he did. I'm scared of
And
his
when
team.
we saw the Glade click one move
That's all it
and get a
needed.
6-0. Yeah.
All it needed. Now
So
for
with
vacuum, yeah. Who we got there?
vacuum, obviously I think I'm gonna do pretty well in vacuum.
Oh, you better.
I think Super Bench is going to cook it in vacuum. He's gonna have a good run. There's a lot of new people in vacuum wave.
Yeah, we have a ton of new coaches.
Audit Aaron's gonna do well.
Hmm.
Destiny, who's a new coach to CTH. I haven't been in a league with him before, but he's done pretty good his first 2 games. And I liked his draft team. Who else? Ty the guy.
Oh yeah.
He can cook. He's seasoned. But I definitely think Bench is getting to finals. Locking that in now.
I
Locking
agree with
in
your
the bench
Destiny pick.
finals.
I've watched both of his games so far, and I think that he's played around his opponent really well. I
Yeah,
think he
100%.
adapts perfectly.
Then last up, what are you thinking for Thunderclap, our wonderful VGC division?
So with Thunderclap, let me think here. I'm looking over the rosters real quick.
No pressure, but I am right here.
You are obviously going to do well. You're gonna make a good playoff run. I could see you in finals for sure. Chi is gonna carry the entire season.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Such a good.
Um, even though Speedy and Biology Nerd lost their week 1 games, I know they are both very well versed in BGC. So they are people that you need to watch out for. I might be putting Mylan on the spot here. However, that his week 1 game was his first ever VGC game. He did draft a phenomenal team.
Is that the Sun team?
No, that's your week 2 matchup.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
scared about that one.
He is brand new to VGC, but he drafted a wonderful team. Gravy Train is also very new to VGC. But we saw that Executor cook. I also like his Psychic Train team. And last person I want to bring up is Milk. Milk has been cooking in the other VGC league we're in. So even though he lost week 1, I can see him getting out this rut and coming through.
It's so cool to hear how many people are new to VGC and are still coming up with all these awesome techs and all these builds.
Well, I think it's because they're not like one of the problems I have with VGC is I try to like make my teams too closely to a team I'd be trying to run on the ladder.
Mhm.
So I've done a lot of VGC ladder grinds on cartridge.
Okay.
So that's my hiccup. Is I try to get too close to a team that's going to perform well there when I need to be making a team that's going to perform well against the 10 that my opponent has.
Ah.
So I think the new people having a fresh eyes and not having that influence by the VGC ladder might have a weird creative advantage, if you will.
It's funny you mentioned that because a lot of my builds are directly like I'm prepping like I'm in Worlds or something. Like I'm gonna see the same teams and all the similar meta picks. But you're totally right. People coming in with this fresh eye and this fresh view that only see the team in front of them might have a weird advantage.
Oh, 100%. And I can't speak for VGC as much. You know, I have very little experience with it. But just draft as a whole, really, coming in with a fresh mind and fresh set of eyes to look over everything and come up with these new unique strategies that people haven't seen or played against, it can be so frustrating. Especially in we talked about Minecraft earlier and the unique sets. It can be so frustrating when you don't know what to prep for because they could bring anything and you have no idea. Um, and it's always fun to see people who are new to it try different things and them work.
100%. Like I promise you, when I saw like Crisp team, I never thought he was going to contrary swap the Hydrapple with Malamar. Like, excuse me?
Yeah, no, I that was not something I ever saw coming. And when I was told to watch it, I was like, this is one of the coolest sets I've ever seen. It was great.
So from the owner's mouth, we have our favorites. Whether that's pressure or whether that's a little support on your side, take it as you will. We appreciate your insight a lot.
Oh, for sure. And Andy, do you have any words for all of the people of CTHBL as our fearless leader?
I appreciate all the time that everyone puts into CTHBL. It makes me want to do this more. And you get what you put into everything. So I enjoy my time as the commissioner and owner of CTH. And I'm excited to see everyone cook.
There we go. You heard it from him first. But thank you everyone for tuning in and listening. Obviously, we're always happy to bring this to you, and we're happy that we're able to do this on behalf of CTHBL. Kurt, what do you got?
Again, thank you, Handy, for coming in.
Of course.
Thank you again to my co-host, Josh. I think we got a lot of great insight today. I'm super excited for the conclusion of week 2 and every week onward. I'm scared for my matchup this week, like I mentioned before, but I think the prep work we've gone into and knowing that my opponent is now a super noob, maybe boost my ego a little bit.
Hmm.
But thank you all for listening. We once again open the invitation. If anyone wants an interview, if anyone wants to share their experiences, please reach out to us. We've got a couple weeks scheduled in advance, but we've got some spaces.
That we do, and yeah, we'd love to have you guys. We love hearing from you, um, and we're looking forward to the coming weeks and everything that's going on with season 2.
Any closing remarks, fearless leader?
No, y'all nailed it on the head. Y'all doing amazing with these podcasts.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, boss.
Well, thank you for listening. We will see you all next week. Please check out our Monday episode. We've got a little preview of the upcoming Pokemon game, as well as a return of our fun little mini games we do. I made one for Josh, so I don't know how he's going to perform, but I'm sure he's going to knock it out of the park.
Fingers crossed on that.
Fingers crossed.
We got
So as always, thank you so much, our homies, and keep prepping.
Yeah, keep prepping, and we'll talk to you all again next week. Thank you.